Good morning, eager minds out there in the void. What is the Great Darkness? Let's just read through a few of the scans from the Dark Crisis series, as well as some other series that mention what the Great Darkness actually is. Here, you freed me from Pariah's darkness, but it's why you were able to contain the spread of the darkness within yourself until the infinite Earths were restored and Pariah's darkness faded away. The Great Darkness awakens in the sphere surrounding the dark multiverse. The eyes of the other kind have turned upon reality. Some even believe it is where God sent the darkness after he brought the light. I call it the Shadowlands, and it's where I pull my powers from. The Bible tells the story in terms of time. One thing after another. First, there was darkness, then there was light. Your people remember it differently. They see the darkness as a tunnel that they crawled through to reach the light, a vertical tunnel. The light was in another place far above. This means nothing to you, does it? In any case, they tell a story as a journey, a hard and terrible journey. The place where they started was the first world, where the darkness was, and it still is. We know something he doesn't. If I make him see the truth about the Great Darkness, maybe it will give us the opening we need to stop him. We are running out of time. If Pariah creates more worlds, it could cause the whole multiverse to be overrun by the Great Darkness. But this isn't the Great Darkness. It's Pariah's own insanity, his own power gone mad. I absorbed the light that created the multiverse, and I believe I can use it to illuminate the darkness. Pariah was a certifiable loon, thought he was talking to some great darkness when it was just the voices in his head until he bit the dust. But the darkness he created lives on. The idea of the omniverse was false. It created an imbalance in our multiverse, which I believe Pariah has been manipulating. Dude, you need serious help. Whatever voices you're hearing in your head, it's not the Great Darkness. The Omniverse may be relatively more stable than Hypertime, but its multiverses are being besieged by the Great Darkness. During the crisis with the Anti-Monitor, I met a baby who had grown to an adult man in mere days. He told me the crisis would impact spiritual dimensions as well, and that I needed to stop the Great Darkness, but instead, I convinced it to rest. That is why the acts of this darkness are so weird against everything we know. I'm not sure whether we're actually facing the Great Darkness. So with all of that in mind, what would your viewpoint be on if the Great Darkness was authentic, or was it some sort of projected energy that came from Pariah and snowballed itself into more power over time? The comics clearly tell us many times that the Great Darkness is not a real thing, and that it came from Pariah. The Great Darkness was stopped as soon as Pariah was killed, and the remnants of energy left over eventually faded away. And some of the older comics have said that the Great Darkness looms somewhere beyond the dark multiverse. But all of this is a reference to the first sentences of the Bible. In the beginning, there was only darkness and nothing, and then God came and created the light. This is essentially how DC wants you to take what the actual Great Darkness is. And all of this is actually stated and implied in an older Grant Morrison comic book, of course. There are many worlds in the DC cosmology history, and the world means creation. Now, we normally watch the Fourth World, and the Jack Kirby original comic series was called The Fourth World. So when we read DC Comics, what we're reading and we're looking at with Superman and all of the other heroes is the Fourth World. There were 3 worlds before that. The very first world was the empty creation that only held darkness, and it was created by God, whoever the creator actually is. The first world was confirmed in this scan as the Great Darkness. The second world is appearing the moment that God starts casting light into creation. And the creation is all the stuff and concepts and energies and characters. That's the second world. We don't know very much about the third world, but it had something to do with the fathers and mothers of the new gods, with like Yuga Khan and that entire era of cosmology. So that would be the third world. The current one that we are usually reading about in comic books is the fourth world. But in Final Crisis, Nix Wotan brought forth the fifth world. The fourth world had ended, and the old god had died. Nix Wotan brings forth the fifth world, and we don't really get to see much of it until the Multiversity comes out after that. So the entire era of the Multiversity is the fifth world. Now again, it's really not that complicated. Actually, it's a parallel with Marvel Comics and how they represent all of the firmaments. In Marvel cosmology, the very first multiverse was called the Firmament. And whatever the container is for the Marvel creation, that first cosmos is locked away, hidden somewhere else, and the second one replaces it. And then the second one goes away, and then the third one replaces it. And then somewhere else, the third one gets replaced by the fourth, and I believe Eternity, the normal cosmology of Marvel that we read about when we read Marvel Comics, has predecessors of multiverses that came before him. All of those multiverses are still there somewhere. They're just locked away and hidden from view from most of the abstract beings. So DC kind of does the same thing here. And the original first creation that God created, whoever the creator is, made sure that the first cosmos had nothing in it. It was complete darkness. There were no concepts, there were no energies, there were no light sources. There was nothing. It was empty. It was a void. And that is the Great Darkness. And the moment that creation began, the second creation began, God put in more energies and specifics and filled it with stuff. And that Great Darkness went to sleep and was moved somewhere else. The second cosmos, again, was revised and more things were added or changed, and a third one was made, and that means the second one went away somewhere else to be locked away from view. Still there, but not well known to anybody else. So if you want to know what the Great Darkness is, the Great Darkness is the very first creation, the very first multiverse, or the very first universe, or the very first anything that was created by the creator. Now, you can consider that the source or the presence, it doesn't really matter. But the whole point of this is that the Great Darkness is creation with nothing in it. Absolutely nothing. A zero factor. And the second world would be whatever God started putting into creation specifically. And we go all the way up to the fourth and the fifth. DC has been doing this since, the early 80s, and we just get a reference to this exact same thing in the late Dark Crisis series, where we find out that the multiverse that was deleted by the Anti-Monitor in Crisis on Infinite Earths was still there. It was locked away somewhere else in bleed space or hypertime. And we get a confirmation of this from Lex Luthor in The Flash, who find out that they've been there before. They have been to this place before, and that the notion of the Omniverse was not real, and it was just another locked section of the local multiverse. And what that means is when the multiverse was deleted by the Anti-Monitor, it wasn't actually deleted. It was sent and stored somewhere else in hypertime or bleed space. The exact same thing happened with all of the past creations that God had revised or made, or anything like that. Every time the multiverse gets destroyed, it gets saved just like a recycle bin in the computer, and you can go visit it if you know where the recycle bin is. So the very first creation was the great darkness. It had nothing in it, and the light is the light of creation, and we know that because Dr. Light explains what the light is. The light of creation is what she says it is. All of this is a Bible reference. All of it is set up to mirror the first statements that you see in the Christian doctrine. So thank you so much for watching and sticking with me. I know it's a little bit convoluted and, a little bit confusing, but if you have questions, please make sure to drop them in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. It means a lot to me when you do it. And yeah, thanks so much for watching.